Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there.
So just double check everything is good. We're going to do something different today. We're going to go kind of in reverse, and we're going to start with some possibilities for whoever is interested out there. Have you ever thought of working on a farm? Or how does seeing the world for free sound?
Oh, I think it sounds like a great idea.
Oh, yeah. To me, big time, big time. Boy, if I was to do things over differently, I probably would wander the world for 20 years and then settle down. Exactly kind of the opposite of what I did.
Yeah, we all got to look back and see what we might do different and keep that in the memory banks.
But everything has its purpose. And so many people want to get out of the system in any way, shape, or form. And perhaps the only thing you could think is, well, if I had enough money to buy this, whatever, 5 acres, 20 acres, 100 acres. Sometimes it blows my mind. We were talking to somebody that we've met, recently, and they just, dropped it. Oh, well, my parents, they got 800 acres over.
I know.
It's like 800 acres.
It's like,
what?
Wow.
But, it doesn't even have to be that way where you have to have this big plot of land. We're going to try to be sustainable on 0.2 of an acre. Mm-hmm. So we are going to jam it packed as much as we can with food growing in every way possible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But there's other possibilities out there depending on your situation. And so this is from The Guardian. Work on a farm. See the world for free. Think about it. Think about it. There are so many opportunities out there if we just look. So lots of farms, especially those involved with alternative and eco-friendly projects, invite people to volunteer in exchange for free food and accommodation. I mean, what do you really need to live?
I know.
You need food and you need shelter.
Yep. That's
the basics right there. Now, what happens is the system pulls us into needing this, that, and the other thing. And all of a sudden, you got a mortgage, you got a car payment, you got all the insurances. Maybe you even have payments on a motorcycle or a boat or something else, a timeshare. So many people have done that and gotten into a nightmare there with timeshares, which they could be traumatizing trying to get out of them. Think about it. We hook ourselves into way more than we really need. Now, I bring this up because I've had, I'd say, a half a dozen friends that have actually done this, and it's been life-changing for them. It's been liberating for them, and they've gotten to explore exotic places from South and Central America to over in Southeast Asia, even Africa, and see things they would never, ever see before. So free food and a place to stay, all you got to do is go pick some berries. Or maybe it's going to be plant some trees. See what you get to learn about growing things in an organic, sustainable way. So that is a possibility. And here you have 30 jobs that provide housing and other related benefits. And there's just a few I wanted to bring up as we're looking. Personally, I don't want to work on an oil rig, out there in the middle of anywhere.
No.
As much as I love, the Gulf of Mexico, I wouldn't really want to be on an oil rig out there. But there's a lot of other things. You could nanny, and you could tutor. I've known a bunch of people that have tutored in other countries, just simply teaching English, and they basically have, their room and board paid for, and then they get to just explore. I mean, I love the idea of taking in different cultures. And again, live-in caregiver, that's another one that could be a possibility. Resident manager, and that's another thing. And I actually, did get free room and board living on site, running retirement communities. And honestly, it was one of the more challenging positions that I had, as I was kind of a troubleshooter. but at the same time, it was super rewarding because I loved it. And I loved dealing with the seniors. I loved going into a community that was kind of lifeless and, blah, and turning it around and doing things like throwing dances, having fairs for them, bringing in live music, changing up menus, trying to get things to be healthier there as well. Just doing things that will bring life to people, was so fun. But the benefit was, it didn't pay a lot, but I didn't have any bills because everything was paid for. So that's pretty good when you get down to it. Butler, housekeeper, house and pet sitter. I know one lady that's been in, and she's probably listening to this video, she's been in Costa Rica, southern Costa Rica, close to the Panama border, for, I believe, over 20 years. And this is what she's done. She's in a house that's worth, tens of millions, just basically taking care of it because the owner only stops by there maybe a couple of times a year. That's it. They trust her. All she does is, make sure everything stays in good shape, and she's living rent free. That you can't beat that. That is so amazing. Just, thinking outside of the box. How about summer resort worker? Ooh, that could be fun. Camp counselors. It goes on and on, depending on what your skills are. A chef, again, English teacher overseas. It goes on and on. Maybe sometimes we don't think enough outside of the box. We need somebody to say, hey, what about this possibility? And then, run with it. And so I'm going to give you guys all these links, and this one's to sustainable living and farming jobs. Again, one other friend went from Thailand, which they loved it, over to, I think it was the Czech Republic, and that was like such a different change of scenery. This is WoofNet. And so this is, again, about being able to go around the world, pick your spot. There's over 12,000 people that are part of this network where you could go and work on an organic farm. There's different hosts. You want to go to Hawaii? That sounds good. Want to go to Spain? That looks beautiful. Wisconsin? Want to go play with the horses in Sweden? I know Cindy does.
I'll think about that one.
She's going to think about that one. Might be able to talk her into that one, though Sweden's a little cold for her. But again, look at Greece. These are just possibilities, thinking out of the box. And this is Michael Tellinger and his Ubuntu movement. And it's a liberation movement, one small town. So there's an actual program where if you have a certain size town, which is basically between 4,000 and 7,000 people, you could try to get into this movement. Of course, you need to get 20% of the people to express their interest in it. But it's, again, all about recognizing that what suppresses freedom in this world is the system itself. The system keeps us in bondage. The system is the problem. The problem is the system.
And it's a big one for most of us who want to just simply be and do what we want and live how we want to live and put in our bodies only the things we want in our bodies.
So, Michael Tellinger, many of you might be familiar with some of his other work, such as, exposing the Anunnaki presence on the planet, and, the fact that our history is not what it seems. He's done a lot of work into showing the reality of giants and of these extraterrestrial interdimensional beings. and uncovered many, many amazing things and shared them with the public over the years. But this is one of his passions because he understands that we are trapped in their system. So how do we get out of this system? Well, this is his plan, and I'll give you, his link again. And these are communities. These are just some. Want to live off grid? Try these communities, because there are communities out there. And you could do a search on eco villages, and this just brings up a few different ones in Oregon. Many off-grid communities. For those looking for something a bit less communal, Three Rivers Rec Area contains over 500 off-grid vacation homes. But there's more than that going on. There are a lot of these places that you could go and join if you just do a little bit of research. So you have Dancing Rabbit Eco Village in Missouri. There's about 60 residents committed to living sustainably on 280 acres of land. We know in Missouri, a lovely young couple that, they had the money to buy some land, so they got themselves some acres. And right now, they're building their own A-frame, and they're racing against the weather to get it up, as they have little ones with them, including basically an infant.
Yeah.
And they're doing it, though. They're going to do it off grid, and so proud of people manifesting their dreams. That's freaking awesome.
It is. It's completely awesome. I love to see it actually in action, and we wish them all the luck in the world.
So, before permanent residency can be established, there's a trial period so that you can see if it's a good fit, because everybody's different. And this is one of the things that would scare a lot of people, and this is one of the things that would scare Cindy, is, you got to know that you're going to be with people that you can cohabitate with. Because what if you jump into something and then you find out that it's not a good marriage?
Right. That's a serious issue.
It is. It's a very serious issue. You have to be on board. And this gets into some others in Washington State and Hawaii as well. So I just wanted to share some of these things with you to get you guys thinking a little bit more out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're going to look at the news, first off, we have this parody bill. Pennsylvania state rep introduces a parody bill to limit men to having 3 children before mandating vasectomies.
Wow. What?
Legislation is being introduced in Pennsylvania that would limit the number of children men could father to 3. The bill, being called parody legislation, would mandate vasectomies for men 40 or over following their 3rd child, whichever comes first. Or no, it would mandate vasectomies for men at age 40 or following their 3rd child, whichever comes first. And the thought is that this is kind of a joke because of what Texas has done with the anti-abortion legislation. So, here we have a state going a different route, and, perhaps they think, well, they're going to put the onus on the males. But everything that's gone on recently, and when we look to China's one child policy that they had in effect, it's got to get some people saying, what? Right? Even if this is done in jest and you're trying to poke fun, you're going to have it's just going to raise questions, because as we said before, Rammstein has a famous, and they're a heavy metal group, "We're all living in America," with a K. Well, pretty soon I think we're all going to be living in China if certain things come to fruition with these powers that be. And who's to say you wouldn't really have something like that put into effect?
Well, now maybe they've just put it in jest, but we know how that works. It's a free will universe. Believe it if you want to.
The last thing we need, and this is why people want to get out of the system, is that the system is just growing. It's like a malignant tumor that just won't stop growing. And here we see the OECD secures a deal on sweeping global corporate tax reform as the last holdouts cave. So they're going to have a global tax on corporations. And you might say, oh, good, because I mean, so many of these corporations don't pay any taxes. And meanwhile, people like my parents, for instance, neither one of them ever made more than $20,000. My dad lost his job. We lived paycheck to paycheck. That's not how we always grew up. And he lost his job, and somehow they ended up paying tons to the IRS, and it was more than a strain, because it meant that you just weren't going to have some things. And these are people that never made more than $20,000 in their life. And you got corporations that don't pay any taxes. Yet, more taxes are not the solution. The system's the problem. We're just so used to the whole concept of taxes now that we don't even think about it anymore. And soon, maybe we'll be all so used to the concept of these dates for men that we just don't think about it anymore. It's what the controllers, the however we want to word it. If we want to view it in terms of a feudal society, it's what the ladies and the lords want. And who are we to question the judgment of those that are up on high? This is where the system is the problem. The system needs to be, we have to throw it out the window.
Right.
We need to throw it off planet.
Dismantle. Completely.
So more taxes? No, that's not going to really help anything. And there is the mindset that we could tax people into equality. How's that really worked so far? Government just gets bigger, and this is what we've been talking about. There was a video, I think it was an MSNBC financial analyst that was looking at the jobs report, and his jaw just kind of dropped. They were predicting 500,000 new jobs, and 194,000 materialized. That's pretty poor. When you're looking for 500K and you get 194K. But what was interesting too is when you started to go through them, you could see a trend. And this is where these dates for men, and again, we're doing everything kind of in reverse for those that are new to the channel. And while it might make things a little complicated, it at least keeps us doing this. Because, very easily in this world, anything could just disappear overnight, as was the case with our first channel and the demonization that it got. And, now it's sitting with 2 strikes, so we can't do anything on that channel. So you have to be very careful about how you speak. So when we talk PCC, we say put it up to a mirror and see what that is. But basically, some of this might be directly related to people saying no to those, dates for men that are out there, as education sector, for instance, didn't. And you have a lot of people that are leaving what they were doing, and many of them were probably very, very happy doing what they were doing, but they're leaving it on principle. Let's just put it that way, on principle. So yeah, we know that there is a big economic reset that has been planned for a long time and is well underway. Do you think it will lead to more civil liberties, to more economic opportunity for all? Well, when we look at the numbers, since this plague upon the land, the only ones that have benefited are those in the billionaire class. And here we see the CIA's new units pave the way for the most totalitarian period in its history. Well, global history too. I think, we're going to look back at what happened in WW2, and even now we are, looking back and saying, Wow. In some ways, on the global stage, it looks more ominous. It looks like we're all kind of waking up in 1930s Germany at this moment. And so you got the CIA and you got the IRS, you have these alphabet soups that are growing by leaps and bounds. I saw, I didn't get new numbers because they didn't want to include the number one and number two employers on the global scale, it seems, in the 2021 numbers. But in 2012, do you know who the largest employer on the planet was? The DoD,
No.
the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, in 2012. And back in 2012, number two was the PCC, basically.
Wow.
So it was, again, the whole political structure of the US and China are the biggest employers on the planet. And now that might be reversed, where China is the biggest and the US number two. Again, this is a trend. Eventually, you're either going to work for the system, or what's the alternative? You're in a tent, maybe in a nice piece of the woods, until you get booted out of that area. This is where we're heading. And meanwhile, you're going to have the G7 leaders, you're going to have the WEC, Brain Trust. You're going to have all these global elite billionaires and their minions. They'll still have their caviar, their filet mignon, and their lobster tails. And other people are going to be looking to make dandelion soup.
Yeah.
If you can find enough dandelions.
Yep, and the ones that are eating the lobster tail and stuff, they don't mind at all. They're fine.
No, and don't worry. It's all trickle-down economics. It's going to catch up to everybody eventually.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they'll tell us. And how good is this system at keeping everybody divided? We have a huge explosion which hits a Shiite mosque. Dozens killed. Actually, estimates might be even up to 100. And again, when we look at this, Shiite and Sunni, those are the two sects of Islam. And we're talking a split that happened 1,200 years ago or so on who was going to basically lead Islam after Muhammad left the world. And the killing has never stopped. Think about it. Aren't religions supposed to be about bringing peace into the world? So what was the purpose of the Crusades? How about the witch hunts? How about the genocide of everybody in the Americas? Perhaps 100 million people. It's never really about, religion. It's about control and power and division. And thankfully, more people every year are basically designating themselves as spiritual, but not so religious. Mm-hmm. Because what's the difference, some might say? Well, if you're leading a spiritual life, you tend to see the divine in everything all around you, maybe even in yourself. Maybe you're even going to cultivate that. And, when we say namaste, sure, Google will tell you it means hi, but what it originally meant in the yogic term was that the divine in me recognizes the divine in you, and that all of us, every single one of us, has the true God with the big G, source, in us. How could we not? Again, if God is omnipresent, that means God's everywhere. Well, if it's not in you, it's not in me, then it can't be God, right? It can't be omnipresent. This is just a little simple logic that people don't question, because people in some traditions are brought up with the idea that God's up on a cloud somewhere watching everything. The Most High God. And as we have said before, simple clues. Just look to the script. the scripture. I am a vengeful and jealous God. Well, right there means that you're one of a classification of which there are more than one. So it's pretty obvious when we start to look deeper. It's all about division. And we need to get past this. This has to end for us to manifest a different reality. And we see the push, which is getting stronger, to create that global conflict. And we got last night from the guides that this is going way up in the chances of them actually manifesting this. And again, when something is not going as they want it to go, if people are not necessarily conforming to the dates for men, right, but resisting and waking up in ever-growing numbers, then they'll do something different. Something else will pop up. And we see Taiwan will do whatever it takes to defend freedom, but isn't seeking war with Beijing, so says their president. After the revelations of, yes, there are special forces from the U.S. in Taiwan. As we said before, one congressman basically said there's 30,000 that are there. But this time, the difference is that we did get official verification that there are troops there, to which China has said they view that as an invasion. And again, this is a chess game where the ultimate controllers are the ones moving not just the white side of the chessboard. They're moving both sides. Both. When we look to World War I, for instance, again, some of the most powerful names in American politics were tied to a German NAZI company that made a ton of money because of World War I. Actually, probably helped bankroll, when you look at it in this light, their ability to seek the presidency and gain it with two different people from that family. China's largest bank restricts forex and commodity trading for retail investors. Remember, they said all crypto-related transactions are illegal. Everything that you're looking at right now, China doing, imagine it being the entire globe in the future if the powers that be have their way. So anything that you see going on in China, just picture that it could be the reality 5 to 10 years down the line if the powers that be have their way. Only instead of saying China's largest bank, it's going to be the world's.
Yeah.
And it'll be just out there. Now, with the taxation again on the global front, again, they're paving the way. Everything is about paving the way. Eventually, again, we'll have one monetary system for everybody, and it'll basically be a complete illusion, which, the one we're in now is basically an agreed upon illusion anyway. But it'll be such so that you can't pay, your neighbor down the street who's a mechanic to fix your car under the table, or the other neighbor who is a construction worker to fix your roof after that storm. All those things are going to go by the wayside because they want their cut on every single transaction. Again, the real ticks and leeches of society are those that are in this whole system, living off of everybody.
And it's really unfortunate because how they copy or mimic everything that is natural. They make a distorted version of it. So they have this global control system. It's almost like their form of oneness.
Yeah, it's distorted in a sense that it's almost inverse.
Yeah.
And so again, we will get those people that All they know about religion or spirituality is maybe, what they heard a particular religious authority in their mind say, and they haven't gone any deeper, and so that's all they know. Just look to the popes, as we've said. Pope John Paul II, he was fairly charismatic, but again, he was a salesman for the same company we're talking about, in which supplied the NAZIs the mechanism for the showers that were not showers, the showers that were the last shower anybody would take. So these ties are deep, deep, deep. The system is corrupt to the extreme. Beijing will have full ability to invade Taiwan by 2025. The defense minister warns full-scale invasion. So what we had gotten to was Cindy had seen remote viewing-wise that there may be tunnels that are already in place in which, they might be able to, who knows, access the sewers, access some entry points, and bring a ton of people in. As we've said, there are already tons of these sleepy cells in the US of A waiting to be activated at the right time. So again, everything right now that we see going on is stuff that has been planned for a very long time. And we have just another coincidental explosion. This is a gas processing plant in Russia. Largest gas processing plant in the Far East, supplying China via the Power of Siberia pipeline. All work suspended. Massive explosion. The fire has been extinguished, and Beijing is scrambling for power. Now, just because, let's do this analogy. We know that the two arms that are controlling the pieces on the left side of the board, they're controlling the black pieces on the chessboard. On the right side, it's the right hand controlling the white, and just using that arbitrarily. We know it's really one entity in that it is, the real power structure on the planet that's controlling those. But that doesn't mean that the king, the queen, the bishops, the rooks, the knights, and especially the pawns understand who's really moving the pieces. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. It's just like the ant analogy, the black ants and the red ants are all in the same aquarium, and say somebody picks up the aquarium and they shake it. Well, these ants are going to start fighting with each other, but they don't realize it was one entity that's causing the disruption.
No, I mean, so the ants get shaken and they start fighting amongst themselves.
Yep.
They start just lashing out and biting each other, even though it was a separate person that shook the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So most definitely, there's many generals that don't have a clue. Absolutely no clue how the real power structure works. Certainly, going on down the line, whether it's corporals or majors, sergeants or privates, no clue. I think there's a lot of people in the House of Representatives, the vast majority, that don't really know. They might have suspicions. And I think there's a lot of senators that don't get in the know until they've been in their position a long time. So yeah, I would guess that people like NP or LG, is when we're talking about these long-term senators, they probably understand that really, who people are reporting to. But for the most part, most of the people don't know. So, yeah, your generals in the CCP, they don't understand. And same thing with many of the generals here in the U.S. And I don't think maybe presidents fully understand until they're actually in office. And a lot of times then they all of a sudden look like they age 20 years overnight, or that they got to run to the John after they've been told something.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty wild to see their faces afterwards. And let's move over to here. That was more in depth about what's going on over there. So Russia invites China for crunch talks with the Taliban. Let's have a lunch date here on what to do with Afghanistan's future now that American troop withdrawal is complete. Well, at least officially complete. Think about it. Again, this is all part of shifting power to the PCC with the vision that it's going to be a one global PCC world. And here we have Beijing warning Australia's provocative actions on Taiwan would be cataclysmic for bilateral ties. And, there was one comment, and that kind of boggled my mind. What would China want to go to war with Australia or the U.S.? And it's for what the Nazis called Lebensraum, living space. When you look to China, 1.44 billion people, right? The United States, 330-ish million. The same size land, the land space is about the same, pretty much. Australia is not quite as big, but it's just about, they're all kind of equal. Australia only got 23 million people or so, I think, if my numbers are right. That's a lot of empty space. And in China, often the skies are just permanently gray because of all the industry, because of all the people and so little space. There's rampant pollution. The quality of life overall is not that great, even though their monetary situation has been improving over the years. When you look to the U.S., there's still vast tracts of really open land. I mean, we've traveled all over it. There's tons of room. Mm-hmm. I had seen once before where you could take everybody in the U.S., comfortably put them in Texas, and there'd still be room. Again, you have more than 4 times the amount of people in China. So, yeah, and then back in 2005, that one particular general said, it's going to come to the time when we're at about 1.3, 1.4 billion. This ain't going to be sustainable. Either the population is going to have to be halved, or we're going to need the land space that you can only find in one of 3 places: Canada, Australia, or the U.S., or all the above. Mm-hmm. And that kind of says everything right there.
Sure does.
So we want to thank our Patreons. We couldn't do it without you guys for your support. Make sure you do thumbs up if you find the content interesting. Please do subscribe if you're not subscribed. I bet you anything you've been unsubscribed, or at least some of you have. As we watch the numbers, they'll pop forward and they'll go over a new barrier, like, whatever, 13,600. And then all of a sudden, overnight, they'll lose like 20, or 30, because they don't want it getting higher. That's what they did to Evolutionary when we got to 66,666, and then they started to run it backwards. Yeah. So do double check, and do check out Medicinal Foods. Lots of good stuff. Good for the body, good for the mind, good for the spirit. Good people to understand consciousness, understand ascension, understand health as well. Use the coupon code EEA, and you'll get 5% off the order. And as you fill up the cart, you could get up to 25% off and free shipping. Share your thoughts on what you want to see and hear with us too. As we get ourselves rooted and situated, we'll be able to explore more things, as we've just been basically able to kind of keep up with the news and try to give you guys messages that we're getting. But we'll be going deeper into stuff. We're definitely going to be going way deeper into meditation, mantras, Qigong, things like that. Do check out the playlists as well if you haven't, for the Qigong meditation and mantras. And as always, guys, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.